Nobody trusts the experts anymore, and calling people dumb because of that isn't going to reverse their distrust. Hi folks, I'm Paul, and this is my take. Over the last 4 years, although I would say it probably started earlier than that, trust in institutions have crumbled. 2021 was a big year for failure. The expert class dropped the ball a lot in 2021. Media improperly reported COVID severity, government botched the Afghanistan withdrawal, pharma rolled out the jab, and, well, we all know how that went. But it's fascinating that after all that, after all the time that the experts have had to sit with their mistakes and ponder how that might affect their credibility, they've still managed to go, am I untrustworthy? No. It's the masses who are stupid. I see posts like this on X, and it just baffles me. Guys, this level of elitism is one of the biggest reasons you lost this election. Nobody trusts you. Your credentials don't mean anything anymore. And you know what? That's your fault. The educated elite among us spent 2020 through 2023 completely blowing their credibility. Let's start with the pullout from Afghanistan. On August 30th, 2021, the Biden-Harris administration pulled out of Afghanistan, which in and of itself, I don't have a problem with. But the way in which they did it was so frustratingly boneheaded, I almost can't believe it. The withdrawal was done in an attempt to give Biden a win. Optics. All optics. And if it had been done properly, it would have been a win. I would have given it to him. But we all know how it went down. As the withdrawal began, it became pretty evident that leadership was trying to expedite the process. Lots of things were overlooked. There were no contingency plans. No stabilization force remained in place. Strategic positions were just abandoned, and the people of Afghanistan and what flimsy structure of government they had was left totally blindsided. They were completely unprepared. The Taliban came in almost immediately and took over. 20 years of work was gone in a matter of weeks. The choices made by leadership and experts during the pullout were inexcusable. It got innocent people from Afghanistan killed, and it got American soldiers killed as well. And for what? The amount of equipment and weaponry that was just left there for the Taliban to have was outrageous. The terrorists had been relegated to mountain caves for well over a decade, and within a month's time, they were more powerful than they ever had been. All because of the choices made by the experts in government. You don't need to be a 4-star admiral or general or some master strategist to see that and go, yeah, that's pretty embarrassing. That's messed up. Shouldn't have done that. And nobody was fired. Nobody was held accountable. In the immediate aftermath, they treated it as no big deal.
But we've all seen the pictures. We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
In fact, they still try to play it off as a win. After 20 years in Afghanistan, I was the president who got us out. And by the way, Kamala Harris was with me. She was the last person in the room. Couldn't have done it without her. Now, I don't know if we're still not allowed to talk about this or not on YouTube, but I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. The pandemic was total weak sauce. Experts responded to that in the most idiotic way. I'll cut them some slack for the first 2 or 3 months because, yeah, we didn't know what we were dealing with. But after that, it was pretty clear that this thing was nowhere near the level of lethality that they made it out to be. The way the experts handled COVID was entirely shameful. It's now known that people like Anthony Fauci were lying through the entire pandemic about things like the 6-foot rule, about the effectiveness of masks. Like if you got the shot, you wouldn't spread COVID. None of that was actually based on anything concrete. Some of it wasn't even based on anything at all. And they've admitted to as much, saying things like the jab were never actually tested on transmission because we had to move at the speed of science.
Was the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market? If not, please say it clearly. If yes, are you willing to share the data with this committee? And I really want a straight answer, yes or no, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunisation before it entered the market? No, we had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market. And from that point of view, we had to do everything at risk.
You weren't allowed to talk about this online back then either, because experts like Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook and Susan Wojcicki of YouTube at the time, using their expert status, decided it was unsafe for there to be dissenting opinions. Other experts on major media outlets proliferated lies and fomented rage directed towards people who were more skeptical. And they were all too happy to do it. And if someone ever could voice some kind of acceptable concern about the response to the pandemic or the safety and efficacy of the shot, they were mocked and chided. Don't confuse your Google search with my medical degree. Okay, but I don't need a medical degree or necessarily even need to Google something to look at all this and go, there's something weird about this. They came up with the jab in record time with no time to really test it for long or short-term side effects. They told pregnant women that it was safe to take when there was no way that they could possibly have known. Pfizer wanted to seal away the list of ingredients for over 70 years so nobody would actually know what was in the serum. Now, I could go on, but is all that not enough for you to go, yeah, that is a little weird? And then there were people who were so convinced by the expert class in media, in medicine, and in government that they wanted to actually round up people who didn't take the jab and put them into camps. Places like Australia actually did that. The experts did untold amounts of harm to our society. You would be hard-pressed to find someone who didn't have a major life event ruined by the edicts of incompetent, power-hungry experts. High schoolers missed out on their prom. People couldn't be with their parents in hospice, so they died alone. My wife and I couldn't have anyone at our wedding. There is an entire generation of children who are going to be socially stunted, all because some experts said that they knew best. And the same thing that happened post-Afghanistan happened here too. None of the experts have ever been held accountable for any of this. So when I see a post like this saying, educated people are the smart ones, and they would have elected Kamala Harris if they were the only people voting, I go, well, it's a good thing they weren't the only ones voting, because educated does not equal informed or intelligent. You might be credentialed, you might have a degree, you might actually be super duper smart, but that doesn't mean anything anymore, because so many institutions that have been known to be filled with super duper smart people who have credentials and degrees failed us miserably time and time again when we were simply told to just shut up and trust them. If you're in a position where you need to follow the guidance of someone who knows more on a certain subject than you, that's fine. I genuinely have no problem with that. But it's when people have questions and concerns and they either go unanswered or worse, they're suppressed, that's when alarm bells start to go off. That signals that these experts might not have your best interest at heart. And it actually bums me out that formerly credible institutions are now untrustworthy. I wish we lived in a society where we could rely on these established institutions. But when their guidance and direction flies in the face of common sense, and they have no real answers, I don't know why they're surprised that people become leery. If you want people to value your educated status again, you're gonna have to get off the elitist high horse and prove to people that you're actually worth listening to and following. That's all I've got for today. But what do you think? Does being educated mean as much as it used to? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. If you like my content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.